There are moments in life when you can feel it, that quiet shift in energy when someone underestimates the wrong person. Chosen ones don't always look powerful on the outside. In fact, many of them appear calm, gentle, even overlooked. But beneath that quiet presence is a resilience and awareness that most people don't immediately recognize. Throughout history and everyday life, certain individuals seem to carry a different kind of emotional and spiritual weight. They endure more, they observe more, and somehow, no matter how much pressure they face, they rise again and again. Because of this, people sometimes mistake their silence for weakness, their kindness for vulnerability, and their patience for permission. But here's the truth many learn too late. When someone intentionally tries to harm, betray, or undermine a deeply resilient person, consequences often unfold in unexpected ways. Not because of revenge, not because of magic, but because energy, behavior, and intention have a way of echoing back into people's lives through natural cause and effect. In today's video, we're exploring 9 things that often begin to happen when someone repeatedly targets a chosen one. As you listen, reflect honestly. Have you ever witnessed these patterns in real life? Stay with me until the end. Some of the later signs are the most eye-opening. There is something almost invisible, yet unmistakably real that begins to shift when someone intentionally harms a chosen one. At first, nothing seems unusual. Life moves forward as usual, but slowly, quietly, patterns begin to change. Plans start failing. Opportunities slip away. Things that once worked effortlessly suddenly require twice the effort with half the results. It's not always dramatic at first. Sometimes it's subtle, like doors gently closing one by one. This isn't about mystical punishment or dramatic revenge. Think of it more like energetic cause and effect. In everyday life, we already understand this principle. When someone constantly spreads negativity at work, for example, they often find themselves isolated or overlooked for promotions. Energy has a way of circling back. In the same way, when someone deliberately targets a person who carries a calm, focused, and resilient spirit, their own disruptive energy begins to create friction in their path. Many people who have experienced betrayal from others notice something interesting months later. The very person who tried to undermine them begins struggling in areas where they once thrived. Maybe their relationships become strained. Maybe their projects stall. Maybe their reputation starts to crack. It's not instant karma, it's gradual misalignment. Life begins reflecting the energy they released into the world. Have you ever noticed someone's negativity eventually catching up with them? Keep that thought in mind as we continue, because the next sign goes even deeper. One of the earliest internal shifts that often appears is emotional discomfort that seems to come out of nowhere. On the surface, the person who caused harm may appear fine. They may even act confident or unaffected. But internally, something begins to feel unsettled, like a constant low-level tension they can't quite explain. Psychologically speaking, human beings are deeply wired for emotional awareness, even when we try to ignore it. When someone knowingly mistreats another person, especially someone who responded with restraint instead of retaliation, the mind often struggles to stay fully at peace. This can show up as irritability, overthinking at night, sudden mood swings, or a strange sense that something just feels off. Real-life examples of this happen more often than people admit. Someone spreads rumors about a quiet coworker, only to later feel uncomfortable around them for no clear reason. A person betrays a loyal friend, then finds themselves unusually anxious in unrelated areas of life. It's not always conscious guilt. Sometimes it's the nervous system reacting to unresolved inner conflict. If you've ever sensed this kind of emotional tension, either in yourself or someone else, you already understand how powerful inner unrest can be. And what comes next? It often begins to show up in their external world too. One of the most surprising consequences that often unfolds is a gradual change in how others perceive them. When someone repeatedly targets or disrespects a deeply grounded person, Their own behavior patterns tend to reveal themselves over time, not through dramatic exposure, but through small, consistent moments that people around them start to notice. At first, their social circle may remain the same. They may even feel validated in their actions. But human beings are incredibly observant, especially when patterns repeat. Maybe coworkers begin noticing their tendency to gossip. Maybe friends pick up on subtle manipulation. Maybe family members start questioning inconsistencies in their stories. What once went unnoticed slowly becomes harder to ignore. In real-world situations, this happens more often than people think. Someone who constantly criticizes a quiet, hardworking individual eventually develops a reputation for negativity. Over time, people begin keeping their distance, not because anyone orchestrated it, but because consistent behavior builds a clear picture. Trust, once cracked, rarely returns to its original strength. When someone operates from a place of jealousy, manipulation, or hidden hostility, it often begins to affect their decision-making in subtle but powerful ways. They may become more reactive, more impatient, or more focused on competing with others instead of improving themselves. And over time, this mindset can quietly sabotage opportunities that once would have been within reach. Think about how focus works in everyday life. When someone is constantly preoccupied with watching, criticizing, or undermining another person, that mental energy has to come from somewhere. It often comes at the cost of their own growth. They miss chances. They overlook details. They make rushed decisions. And slowly, their forward momentum begins to stall. There are countless examples of this in workplaces, schools, and even family dynamics. The person who spends too much time trying to block someone else's progress often falls behind themselves, not because of fate, but because distraction and negative focus are incredibly expensive in terms of mental clarity and performance. If this message is resonating with you so far, take a second to like the video. It helps more people who need this message actually find it. And stay with me, because what often happens next becomes much more personal for them. Perhaps one of the most overlooked consequences is the slow loss of genuine inner calm. On the outside, everything may still look normal. They may still smile in public. They may still appear confident. But internally, maintaining peace becomes harder and harder. When someone repeatedly acts from envy, resentment, or hidden hostility, their nervous system often stays in a subtle state of tension. Over time, this can manifest as difficulty relaxing, trouble sleeping, constant comparison with others, or feeling unusually triggered by small things. It's like their emotional baseline shifts slightly off-center. Psychologists often talk about how unresolved negative emotions don't simply disappear, they accumulate. And when a person directs those emotions outward towards someone who remained composed or unbothered, the contrast can become even more uncomfortable internally. Instead of feeling satisfied, they often feel increasingly restless. One of the clearest ripple effects shows up in the quality of their relationships. When someone carries hidden resentment or spends energy trying to undermine another person, that tension rarely stays contained. It leaks subtly but surely into how they speak, react, and connect with others around them. At first, the changes are small. Maybe they become more easily irritated with friends. Maybe patience runs thinner with family members. Maybe they start assuming negative intentions even where none exist. Over time, people close to them begin sensing the shift. Conversations feel heavier. Trust feels slightly weaker. The emotional warmth that once came naturally starts to cool. In everyday life, we see this pattern often. A person who operates from comparison or quiet hostility usually struggles to maintain deep, peaceful relationships long-term. Why? Because healthy connections require emotional stability and genuine goodwill. When someone's inner world is unsettled, it inevitably shows up in their interactions. Perhaps one of the most uncomfortable moments for someone who tried to block or undermine a chosen one is witnessing their continued growth. Because here's what often happens. The very person they expected to fall apart rises instead. At first they may dismiss it. They may tell themselves it's temporary. But as time passes and the chosen one keeps moving forward, healing, improving, succeeding, or simply staying emotionally unshaken, something begins to stir internally. Comparison intensifies. Frustration grows. Small updates about that person start feeling strangely irritating. Psychologically, this makes sense. When someone invests energy into hoping another person will fail, seeing the opposite outcome creates cognitive dissonance, an uncomfortable mental tension between expectation and reality. Instead of peace, they often feel increasingly triggered by the chosen one's calm progress. Over time, consistency reveals character. This is one of the most reliable truths in human behavior. Someone can maintain appearances for a while, sometimes even for years, but repeated patterns eventually create cracks that others begin to notice. When a person repeatedly operates from manipulation, jealousy, or quiet hostility, maintaining a perfectly polished image becomes exhausting. Small slips happen, tone changes, stories don't line up perfectly. Reactions become slightly too sharp in moments where calm would be expected. None of it may be dramatic on its own, but patterns speak loudly over time. People around them may not immediately confront them, but awareness grows. Trust becomes more cautious. Distance increases subtly. And the person who once felt fully in control of the narrative begins sensing that something in their social environment has shifted. This is often the final and most important turning point, the moment when external distractions stop working and the person is left facing themselves. Not everyone reaches this stage quickly. Some resist it for a long time. But when enough friction builds in life, missed opportunities, strained relationships, inner restlessness, reflection becomes almost unavoidable. In quieter moments, questions begin surfacing. Was it worth it? Why does nothing feel fully settled? Why do certain situations keep repeating? This is the point where growth becomes possible, but only if the person is willing to be honest with themselves. Because here is the deeper truth behind everything we discuss today. This is not about punishment. It is about alignment. Life has a way of nudging people back toward balance when their actions consistently move them out of harmony with their own values and emotional well-being. And now I want to hear from you. Have you ever witnessed someone face unexpected consequences after mistreating a genuinely peaceful person? Or have you personally experienced being underestimated, only to rise stronger later? Share your experience in the comments. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Anointed Era for more deep, eye-opening content that helps you see people and situations more clearly. Until next time, stay aware, stay grounded, and keep rising.